Michael Curtiz returns to this program, though not as glamorously. By the late 1950s, Curtiz's career had waned. He broke from Warner Brothers earlier in that decade, bitterly concluding a two-decade collaboration. From 1954, Curtiz worked as a freelance director, helming productions for Fox, United Artists, and, most frequently, Paramount. 1959's The Hangman was a Paramount release, a western, obviously. This could be exciting. A Hollywood legend in charge of a 1950s western? Could he potentially challenge John Ford? Well, no, that would be unlikely. Though in any case, hold your horses. Curtiz doesn't seem to be in love with this directorial assignment. He likes it okay. He commits to his job. The film's framing and angling are not quite banal or unconsidered, though resolutely unambitious. I cannot necessarily blame Curtiz, however. Firstly, without a contract, the freelance Curtiz may have had to lower his standards for assignments. It has been claimed that Curtiz was careful with the screenplays he chose to work with. Why, this claim comes from the man himself, who is quoted as stating in 1944, "I want to deal with human and fundamental problems of real people. That is the basis of all good drama. It is true, even in a spectacle, where you must never forget the underlying humanity and identity of your characters, no matter how splendid the setting or situations are." Well, perhaps Curtiz had too much faith in his screenwriter here, Dudley Nichols. Dudley Nichols had penned several of John Ford's best films, including, one's opinion on best may vary, Seas Beneath, The Lost Patrol, The Informer, Mary of Scotland, The Hurricane, Stagecoach, and The Fugitive. He was also responsible for writing two strong films for Fritz Lang, Manhunt and Scarlet Street. But actually, the worst thing about The Hangman is probably its trite, cynical, lazy screenplay. The film stars Robert Taylor as our titular hangman. On the trail of an outlaw, the hangman, named Mackenzie Bovard, subtly seeks out Johnny Butterfield amongst an innocuous town. He receives dubious assistance from the town's sheriff, Buck Weston. Bovard believes everyone is lying to him at any given time. He's not wrong, he's just an asshole. Bovard also seeks the assistance of a woman named Selah Jennison, a former girlfriend of Butterfield's, in identifying him amongst the townspeople. He specifically suspects one Johnny Bishop of being Butterfield in disguise. Selah claims that Bishop is not Butterfield, but of course, he does not believe her one bit. So what could have been an interesting screenplay about a jaded, distrustful lawman falling victim to his own paranoia and making grievous errors winds up another damning indictment of the American Western genre archetypical town's cowardice, a common theme in Hollywood westerns following on from the alleged secret Soviet propaganda film High Noon. But this is not only a damning indictment of the presumed cowardice of average American citizens, but an apparent indictment of the entire Western genre's established trademarks in general. Let me explain why this thought occurred to me. I'll spoil the film's ending. Bovard lets Butterfield get away from him. It is implied Butterfield is not as guilty as the charges claim anyway, and chooses to retire from being the hangman. He's had a very testy relationship with Selah Jennison, though encourages her to make more of her life, firstly through moving on from working at an army base's laundry, and second, through moving on from Johnny Butterfield/Bishop, especially as Johnny has now married and is due to be a father. He also suggests the possibility that if she did want a quiet, stable life, a life he feels she deserves, that she ought marry Buck Weston, who has been treating her very kindly since she arrived in town. At the end of the film's final scene, as Bovard begins to leave for California, exchanging his final words with Buck and Selah by his ready stagecoach, he asks Selah what she has decided to do with her life. It seems to be implied that Bovard expects her to announce her intentions with Buck, but rather she announces to Buck that she likes him more than you can know, but that she loves Bovard and wants to travel with him to California. Presumably she has been smitten with him ever since that gripping speech he gave to her on why he became the hangman. She explains, "He's not half as nice as you are, but it just had to be." Bovard shrugs, "I don't deserve her either, Buck." The couple head off merrily with the stagecoach bound for California. So be a prick. It'll work out. At least be an honest prick. To be fair, Buck wasn't exactly truthful to Bovard throughout the narrative over his knowledge of the Butterfield-Bishop situation. Still, it's a film championing that old whinge that chicks dig jerks. Though here it seems more of a celebration of that claim. If you've ever wanted proof that the American Western is a manifestation of a patriarchal apparatus, here's your film. Okay, there's probably more potent examples than this, although what this makes for, I think, to some degree, is an amusing viewing experience with this perception in mind. I mean, the most potently grotesque, ethically safe American westerns are probably far, far less watchable than The Hangman is. Hey, actually, what occurs to me now to share is one of the more bullying things that Bovard does to Sarah Jennison in this film is he not knowing that she knows Butterfield, he sets up a situation where he has her walk about the town dressed very nicely, being gawked at by all these fairly sleazy men, and he anticipates that if Butterfield walks by her, he will recognize her and communicate with her, thus revealing himself to the observing Bovard and Buck Weston. She was very humiliated afterward, and Bovard expresses, he's very sorry about it. Although it's worth sharing, I feel. Is The Hangman a classic? It's a novelty piece of Hollywood history, a distinct beacon of what the subsequent new wave drove into near extinction. I had some fun watching it, smirking at it, observing its execution, analysing the effort and care placed into this trite affair. A visionary like Curtiz, I'm interested in all of his thoughts, no matter where they are applied. From sci-fi horror experiments like Dr. X to historical epic romantic melodramas like The Charge of the Light Brigade, and even canned, dated American Western fare, such as 1959's The Hangman. If The Hangman is the first Western you have ever seen, don't let it ward you off viewing another.